Hey everyone, Lauren and Fibonacci from A Girl and Her Wool here. So today we are going to be filming the very first installment of the A Girl and Her Wool Fade Dye-Along series. So get excited, we are dyeing up a beautiful colorway that you all helped inspire. So let's get to it. Okay, so before we get started, Nacho is so funny. So before we get started, I just wanted to kind of introduce this a little bit. If you haven't seen the kickoff for this dye-along, I'll link to it up in this video here or down below, and recommend you go check that out to get a little bit more background of what we're doing. But the quick synopsis, the previously on, is that we are going to be doing an interactive dye-along where we're dyeing up a 3 skein fade kit. And so the way it'll be interactive is after each video, kind of go to the comments below the videos and let me know what you want to see in the following skein. So today we're dyeing up the first skein. So after you see what it looks like, comment below, let me know what you like about the skein, what you don't like about the skein, and what should we do in the next one. So you'll see what the skein looks like. And at the very end, I'm gonna film what it looks like. I actually have it here. I'm kind of doing this a little out of order. So I already know what the skein looks like, and I think it came out great. So stick around to find out about that, and we'll talk about what we should do next. So again, in the comments below, what do you want to see next? And then if you see other people commenting and you like their suggestion, feel free to like their comments or respond. You know, let's get the conversation going. Let's be nice and respectful. I will be monitoring the comments, but definitely am looking for some conversation. So let's get that going. You can also use hashtag agahwFadeDyeALong on Instagram. You can post yourself watching. You can post photos of what you think we should do next. Anything of the sort. You can post patterns you like, that kind of thing. So again, in the comments below, you can mention what patterns you want to knit with. I know we talked about that a little bit last week, but you can continue that now that you've seen, you will see the first skein, as well as you'll see it's going to be a fall themed skein. So definitely let me know what you're excited about for fall. A couple of other things just before we get into it is, again, I just mentioned this, but this is going to be a 3 skein set. I know there was some conversation in the comments about how many skeins we'd like to see. Because I'm only dyeing 1 skein per video, I'm going to keep it to the 3 skeins just to keep this series shorter. And then in the future, if we want to do this again, I will certainly do it with 5 skein sets, and then maybe just dye 2 skeins in each video or something like that. So again, I wanted to make this one really interactive and also not drag it out too long. So I thought 3 would be a good fit. I'm also dyeing up the skeins in the videos on my BFL sock base, and if you comment or use the hashtag, you do get entered to win the set once this is all said and done. So I will go back to all the intro video, the 3 dyeing videos, and then I'll probably do a final wrap-up video. So all of those will be entered as entries. So each comment gets you an entry. You can comment as many times as you want. Let's just keep it relevant. And or use a hashtag on Instagram, and that will get you entries to win. If you want to buy the set anyway, feel free to head to my shop and buy the set. Each video that comes out, the discount comes down. So now that this video is out, it'll be 20% off. I currently only have it listed on my DK base and my BFL sock base. So check those out. I know some of you mentioned the Comfort Fade Cardi. That would be great on the DK base. So I think that is it. And oh, of course, what are we doing? So it seemed like a lot of people talked a lot about greens and pinks, which I thought was pretty interesting and also pretty fun. I love greens and pinks as well. So that's the theme that I kind of went with in this video. There was also a lot of talk about how it would be great for fall, because by the time we wrap this up, it'll be great to get started on that fall knitting. So that's what I did. I picked a lot of greens and pinks and made it a fall themed skein. So I hope you like it, and now let's get to the dyeing. All right, let's get to the dyeing. So I have water heated up in my pan here, and what you see in the pan right now is a 100-gram skein of my BFL sock base. So my BFL sock base is a high twist 2-ply fingering weight base that's 80% superwash BFL and 20% nylon. It's a great yarn for socks, and it's great for sweaters too, because that BFL and nylon blend will really hold up really well over time. And I know that some of the comments people made were about wanting to make like a comfort fade cardi or some sort of cardigan, and I know the comfort fade is DK, but I just thought that showing it on the BFL base would be a lot of fun, because I think that would make a really great fingering weight sweater yarn. And so what we're going for here, I probably mentioned this in the intro, but we're going for a lot of those greens and pinks that people mentioned, as well as a fall theme. And so when I think of fall colors, they're usually more muted. You have some browns in there, but bringing out kind of that fall you want reds, and again, people really mentioned a lot of the greens and the pinks. So that's kind of what we're going for. So you'll see the water level is pretty low. Again, I keep it higher when I want to do more tonals and I want the colors to more blend into each other. Because we're doing a lot of greens and reds and browns, it's going to get muddied up with those colors anyway, and I didn't want it to muddy up too much, so I want the greens and the reds to kind of stay separate. And so let's get into it. So I'm just gonna move this around a little bit. If you've watched my dye with me videos, you know I like to pile it more kind of randomly. That helps prevent pooling. And so all I'm doing here is just kind of piling it up, kind of so it doesn't sit, you know, one side and then the other. And I've already, this is going to be a different technique than I've done in some of my recent dye with me videos. I actually have some colors mixed up in these bottles already. So I have like a deep red, I have like a sage green kind of, and then I have a lighter pink. And what I've done in those bottles, and the reasons why I'm doing it in the bottles versus just kind of putting the dye powder on top, is when you use dye powder as it is, you're kind of kept with it as it is. So when you put the dye powder on it, you're stuck with the color of what it is. If you kind of want to make your own colors, it's easier to mix it up in the bottle that way. It also makes a more even tone of it, which I thought would be good considering I'm going to do a few different colors. It would be nice to have kind of, you know, the reddish brown color be more even. So I did mix up a few dyes already in this bottle. This has a few different colors in there, so it's got some reds and pinks and browns, and I was just kind of going for like a deeper red. This one is got some greens and grays in there, so that'll come out like a sage green. And then again, I said this is like a light pink. I've already kind of tested this on some mystery mini skeins, and so just to make sure that the blending that I got was what I was going for. And so let's just get into it. I'm gonna try and just randomly put those on top. Again, I don't want them to blend too much, so I'm gonna pretty much do a color and then let it set. And so let's get into it. Okay, so I'm actually gonna start with the red. I've talked a lot about before about how I tend to go from light to dark. because it's easier to cover up lighter colors than it is to cover up darker colors. But I primarily want this to be based on the red and the green, and then that lighter pink is kind of going to fill in some of the blanks, and that actually I'm going to use to blend it a little bit. So for now, we're going to just start with the red, and I'm just going to put some randomly. I'm not going to go too nuts yet because, again, I don't want the colors to blend too much into each other. So starting off with a little, it's easier to add more than it is to take it off. So again, you can see this is kind of like a muted red there. Again, I blended some reds and browns and pinks in there to kind of get the color that I want. And so, yeah, so again, you can see I really didn't do that much, and we can always add more. So we're gonna see how this goes, and we might end up leaving some white and we might not. We shall see. All right, so we just let that set for a little bit. Now we can check and see how it looks. So again, I can just kind of tap it and see if it bleeds. So it looks like it's staying pretty good. So I'm gonna just rearrange it again, and you'll see when I pick this up, there's really barely any red on here. So we're definitely gonna add more, but I just wanna keep making sure that we don't do too much and keep it kind of random so it's not gonna pool, like have one big chunk somewhere. So again, I'm gonna take this green that I mixed up and just kind of do the same thing, just kind of spray it around. And then we'll let that set. So again, this is kind of like a darker green, like a darker sage green, I would say, which should turn out pretty nice. So again, I'm gonna cover that up and let it set for a bit. So you can see it's getting hot in there. So I did just lower the water a bit. The green is set. So if I kind of press into it, I don't really see it spreading into those white areas, which is great. And I will say, in between when I work on this, I am knitting a few rounds of a sock that I'm working on. So I'll show that to you guys at the end. I've mentioned this before, but you always have to have some knitting out while you're dyeing. So you can see there's a lot of white, and again, I mentioned I didn't do very much red, so I'm gonna just bring some more red in there, and then I don't want the red and the green to be too separate, so I'm gonna try and fill in some of that here. So just kind of get more red and green on there. You'll remember I also have this pink colorway that we're going to use as well, but I really want to get the base of the red and the green going. So again, I'm going to cover this up and let it set, and then we'll take a look and see where we're at. All right, so once again, this is pretty set. You see the red and the green are staying pretty separate, except for like the couple of spots that I poured them on top of each other. So I'm just going to keep doing that, keep looking at the skein, and then adding more of this kind of base color. Again, I could have done more from the beginning, and maybe as I would have dyed this colorway up more and more, I would have done that more and more, but because it's kind of new and everything, I like to just go slow, really pick and choose where I'm putting the dye, and then can always add more. Can't take it away. One thing I wanted to talk about too while I was doing this was, again, the reason why I'm using the bottles. So if you see my other videos, a lot of times I just take the dye powder and dump it on top, and then it kind of just sets in that way. You know, it's just the dye color itself. The reason when I use bottles are when I want to make my own color. So I didn't have the right red that I really wanted in this skein, because a lot of my reds are much brighter reds, or they're more pinky reds, and I really just wanted that muted red. And so that's the instance that I have to blend it up. Same with the green. I don't have a good like sage green dye, so I really had to make it myself. And there are pros and cons to that. So for instance, you know, you get the colors you want. When I first started dyeing, I thought I could buy minimal colors of dyes and make the different colors that I wanted to make, which is true. You can do that, but then, you know, you're blending them within a bottle with water, and so I can't speckle that green on the skein because I don't have that skein in dye form. I can't speckle the red because I don't have that red in dye form. So you need multiple color dyes in order to get speckles if that's a look you're going for. Otherwise, blending in bottles is nice because you really can get the colors that you want. The other thing is you really can control where the dye goes more when it's in the bottle. So I can really, get color into white spots. When I speckle, I'm kind of, it lands where it lands, and I can control it in some ways, but this is just much easier to kind of control and to keep the colors from blending because I can really get close in there. So a lot of times when you're dumping the dye powder on it, it can float away. It can kind of have its own thought process. You can have the water bubble up into that spot. I mean, if I were to spray a little bit of this into the water, it's not really going to change what this is. It's going to dilute it a little bit, but it's not going to really change what this is. Versus if I put dye powder straight into the water, then it's going to become more of a liquid like this, and so it won't speckle. It's just going to dye the skein that color. So just something to think about. Other pros and cons. For easiness, when you are making your own colors, that's really where you have to take good notes. Your formulas have to be written down perfectly, because if you do it a little bit different, you won't get exactly that same red, versus if I just use the dye powder. The dye powder is the color it is, and so I don't really necessarily have to worry about it being the right red. Whereas with this, if I don't get the formula quite right, it won't be that same red the next time when I want to replicate it. So for ease of replication, I find just taking dye powders and throwing them on to be easier. And I don't have to worry about that formula quite as much. I'm more in control of how light or dark it gets. If I put too much red into this bottle, then this is going to come out too red, and then maybe it's hard to then cover it up and get the right color out of it. So that's something to think about kind of for pros and cons. But yeah, so let's see how this is doing since I've been talking. It's probably going to bleed a little bit because it's only been a couple of minutes, and it's not too bad. Let's see if I get some water on there. So again, I'm just tapping the dye and pushing the yarn into the water to see if the color spreads, and it's really not. So I'll probably give it another minute, and then we'll take another look at it and see what we think. All right, I'm gonna do just a little bit in the middle here, and then we'll probably move on. And something, again, we're doing this kind of as that interactive dye with me. So, and this is gonna be a fade. So as I do this, what are things that you like in the skein? What are things that you want to see show up in the next skein? Those are the types of things we want to talk about. Make sure you comment below. So do you want the next skein to be more of this red? Do you want it to be more of the green? Do you want to, we'll kind of see what else I do with this. Do you want it to be more white? Do you want it to have more grays? Like what do we want to see happen with this skein in the next one? So that's definitely something I'll need you guys to comment in this video with. So this is looking pretty good for the base. I'm going to let this sit for just a few minutes to let that finish going, and you'll see I did leave quite a bit of white, and you'll see when we move it around there'll be more. We're going to get kind of that peachy pink color in there, which is going to be really great to bring both of those together. And then you'll see how I kind of fall this up a little bit more at the end. So stay tuned. All right, so I finished kind of doing that base. I think I moved it around and did a little bit more since you last saw it, but you'll see there's a lot of the red and the green in there, but there's also still a lot of white. And so we're gonna just kind of bring some of that pinky peach color that I blended already and bring that into a lot of the white. And I actually don't mind if this bleeds and blends into the red and the green, because I think it'll just help, like I said, blend it all together and kind of just bring the colors together. So I'm gonna let that sit, and then we're gonna do it again. My bottle's running low, so I'm actually going to mix some more up first. All right, so we see kind of that lighter peachy pink in there, which I love. And I'm just gonna move the skein around, get some more on there. I'm not completely set on getting rid of all of the white. I think some of the white will be nice. And again, it'll probably end up getting covered up with what we do in our next kind of layer. Sorry if I'm blocking, I'm just spraying this pink around. And again, I'm not being too careful about just getting it in the white, because I think it'll help blend the colors together too. But just kind of spraying it around. And yeah, so all right, so I used up that bottle, so I think that'll probably be enough of that. Again, I'm gonna let this sit. You can see how light it is. I really didn't use much dye in that bottle. It was very diluted, meaning it was very watered down essentially, and that just helps lighten it. But what we're gonna do next is kind of make, you know, there's just not that much like the red and green back here. So again, this is, like I said, we just kind of do it as, it's always easier to add dye than take it away. So add a little bit more back in there. So we're gonna let this set, and then we're gonna do some more steps. All right, so that's set. I just kind of looked at it a little bit, so it probably is sitting a little bit differently than you saw before. I just kind of looked around to make sure the skein was pretty much covered. Again, there are some white spots left still, but you'll see we're gonna add more to it, and we don't want it to muddy up too much. So again, we have those three colors on here. So we have that sage green, we have kind of that muted red, and then that light peach pink color. And so what I want to do to kind of fall this up a little bit, I said that before, is mute it down a little bit more. And how I typically do that is with brown. So again, we have two ways to go about this. Well, three really. So I could, one, make a brown dye in a squirt bottle again and kind of spray it all over. I can speckle brown on top, and that can help mute it down. Or I could technically do a brown dye bath, meaning that I can remove this skein from the pan altogether, put some brown in the pan, and then dip this back in. And I'm a little torn about which way to go. So because this is a dye with me, I want to kind of think through why I'm contemplating all of these. So one, I could do it in a spray bottle and kind of spray it around. The reason why I'm not sure it'll fit with this is you saw I had a lot of control over where those dyes were going, and I don't necessarily want the brown to just be a third color that kind of like sits in these spots like the red and the green is. I really want it to help mute this skein overall. So I don't think I'm going to do it that way. Going with the dye bath, what will end up happening is I'll just brown up a lot of the skeins. What will end up happening is this will be a brownish version of this that'll just mute down and have an overall brown overtone. I really want this red to show though. That was a lot of what I was bringing. I wanted to bring out this red and this peach color. I don't know how well the peach color is showing up, but it just blends in really nicely with that red. I don't want to like turn this into a tonal skein. So that's why I was thinking about the speckling of the brown. It'll mute down some of the areas and kind of let the brown show without it kind of overtaking the whole skein, but also not blend in too much. So that's what I was thinking of doing. I'm also going to be taking a darker green, kind of one of the color greens that I use in this. It is one of the greens that I use in this bottle, and I'm going to do that too. Again, that's a darker color. I don't want to speckle the red because the reds that I have, I said this before, are very bright. I don't want to make this a bright red skein, so I'm not going to be able to speckle the red. And again, that was one of the pros and cons of mixing your own colors. So I don't have like this red available to speckle. So I'm going to speckle a darker green and a darker brown, and that's really going to bring out that fall theme. I think for me, a lot of fall colors are just kind of that brownish. Of course, when you think of fall, a lot of you are thinking of fall foliage, and you get those bright reds and bright oranges and bright yellows, and that is more than certainly true. But I also love the brown leaves, the pumpkins, and you get like more Thanksgiving type colors, or kind of like those more muted colors. You get the browns in there. just kind of like a Thanksgiving table. So anyway, that's what I'm gonna do. And when I do the speckling, I'm gonna turn off the audio, put a little background music on, just so you don't hear me banging away on the tea strainer. And then also I like to put my mask on, especially when I'm speckling. Right now the dyes are all put away because I was just using these bottles. I don't have the powders out, but I'm gonna bring the powders back out and I'm gonna be speckling, so I wanna put my mask on. So I won't be talking, but I'm gonna do the brown and then I might come back before I do the green. We'll see, or you might just see me speckle some of that green as well. And then that should pretty much be what we're going to do with this skein. So again, keep thinking about what you want to see. Do you want to see this peach color be the base of the next color, and then maybe we speckle greens and reds on it, or greens and browns, and you kind of go that green brown route? Or do we want it to be all green and do a green and brown that I think would actually pair with, if this were a variegated skein with a tonal, I'd probably do kind of that kind of thing. So anyway, think through about that. I'm also going to mention a few other things I want you to comment on. So last time I asked for patterns, so definitely think about more patterns you would like to use, especially knowing that this is on my BFL sock base. So yeah, in addition to thinking about what should skein number 2 look like, let me know what your favorite part of fall is. Is it just is it the fall foliage when things get bright? Is it Thanksgiving? Is it Halloween? Is it the cool air? For me, it is definitely the cool air. Is it a time when you normally go hiking and you have good memories of that? So let's talk about fall and what we like about fall. Is it that sweater weather is coming? Is it fall festivals? You know, what is it about fall that you all love? So again, I'm gonna start speckling and then I will come back. Alright, so before I cover this up and let it go, you can see I really let the brown kind of blend in more. So while I speckled it, I did my speckle and smushing. So you see the brown really kind of blending in there, and you can see where it is. You kind of stop seeing the red show up as much. I did leave it more speckled up here. And then I speckled the green over it. I love doing that. I love speckling I love speckling colors on top of each other because they do blend a little bit, and then they kind of also help bring each other out sometimes. So you know, the green and the brown almost create like a leveled texture thing. So that's kind of what I did here, and then just added some green in there. So I'm gonna let this sit, and then you'll see we'll pick up when we pick up the skein, a lot of it won't have brown or speckles on it, so then we'll see where we kind of want to go next. Alright, so I just moved the skein around and I speckled some more brown on it. So you see some of that brown, I brought in some of that darker green, which just helps, again, when you get different tones of the same color, it just helps give some more texture. And I even speckled some of this like rose color on there, which I thought might be a good option as well to go for our next skein, is if we do want to not go into like a brighter red, but more of a muted brown rose color. So anyway, another option, I thought it would add a little bit more dimension other than just having the green and brown speckles, to kind of have some sort of the pink speckled on there too. So I'm gonna let it set. I don't like to move the skein around too much after I speckle because I don't want it to blend. I want it to sit on there. But then after this sets, I'm gonna just move it around a little bit more. You can see it always looks like it's very dark when you're looking at the parts that have been speckled, but when you move it around, you see there's a lot that hasn't. And so even within here, I've talked about this before, but when you speckle, it looks like you get a lot of green right there, but if you open up the skein, it's really not a lot. And what will happen is this will be a couple of stitches of green, and then that's it. So it won't be a big pooled green spot when you knit or crochet. And so yeah, it'll be a nice fall theme. There's still a good amount of white in there too, which is nice because it'll just lighten up the skein as well. And again, it just gives us some more room for where we want to take this skein next. So I think we'll probably call it done. I actually, let me see, because it's probably pretty set by now. yeah, I think that's pretty good. A pretty skein. Pretty good skein. It's definitely a fall themed with those greens and pinks that you all seem to want. Actually, while we're here, let me just speckle a little bit on top. Again, just bring out some of that brown a little bit more. And I do like this rose color that I put on top as well. So this is really pretty. It's a flowery color, but it's most certainly not a spring color, so I love it. I hope you guys all do too. Yeah, so let me know what you want to see in the next skein. I'm gonna let this set. I'm actually at the end of a very long day of dyeing, so I'm gonna let this set along with the other skeins, and then I'll rinse them all, put them up to dry, and then tomorrow I'll show you what this looks like all dry. I hope you all enjoyed this dye with me. I'm gonna do an outro, so stay tuned, because I'm gonna show again what it looks like dry and kind of talk through what we're gonna do next. Remember that this set that I'll be dyeing in this series will go to a winner as a giveaway gift, so that will go to somebody who is commenting on the videos or using the hashtag on Instagram. And you can also purchase the skein. So right now it's only available on DK and my BFL sock base. I've sold out on the sock base for now. And so yeah, go check that out. Every time one of these videos posts, the discount goes down. So the sooner you buy, you get it for less. Basically, the more the mystery, the better the deal. So go check that out, and then stick around for what this skein will look like. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed that dye with me. I tried to do less time lapses and more talking about my thought process and what I was doing. So certainly let me know below if you like me chatting like that, or if you prefer to just kind of watch the time lapse, and I'll keep that in mind for the future videos. And yeah, I think this skein turned out really well. I'm excited to show it to you guys. So without further ado, here it is. So you can see, again, it's really, I'm obsessed with this skein, I'm not gonna lie. You can definitely, in terms of talking about, you know, the theme of it, we went for those greens and pinks, which I think you can see greens and pinks in there for sure. And then also kind of that brown fall theme. So I think this is a beautiful fall color. I am obsessed, I love it so much. And in terms of the technical side of it, let's kind of talk about what we did, right? So I'm gonna show it to you with the skein in skein form, and then I'm gonna open it up a little bit so you can see more. I might head to my table to do that, we'll see. But you can see kind of where we started with spraying those greens and pinks throughout the skein, or the red, not so much of a pink. But again, you can see they're not bright. You know, I really tried to make them kind of those muted colors because I didn't want it to be too springy or too summery. I really wanted that fall theme. So you see those kind of throughout. And again, you remember we sprayed a little bit at a time. So it's not that highly variegated green and pink, green and red skein. You really just kind of see it as a base layer, which I thought worked really well. And again, because we kept them separate and we let the dye set, so we took it really slow, we put some red on, let it set, put some green on, let it set. We really didn't get that muddied color. You really do see kind of them separate. And then what did we do next? We added some speckles. So you see the brown we put on there, and again I let the brown bleed a little bit. Oh, and also what did we do? We did that peach, so you see some of the lighter pink in there, and again I just thought that that blended it so well, so you get kind of like the darker red into the peach, and it just kind of makes it like less red and white and green. Again, in the end there's not too much white in here, but it is light. So even if you look down here, and again I'm going to open it up, and this might be blowing it out a little bit, but that's not white. It's got kind of this light brown pink look to it, and it just makes it so it's not so overwhelming in color. It just blends everything really well. But again, I was talking about the brown, so you can kind of see I speckled some of the browns, but it blends in a little bit more. We also speckled some of that dark green. So Here you see some of the dark green speckles, and this is actually a spot where I speckled the green and brown on top of each other. So you'll remember I did that. This might even be that splotch of green that I opened up in the video. So you just kind of see when you do that, it just, again, adds some nice kind of layering to it. So let's open up the skein. I'll try and do it here, but I might move to my table. It's just a really crummy day outside, so the lighting won't be too great on the table, but we might be able to show it this way. So again, when you open up the skein, you see kind of where I sprayed the red, where I sprayed the green. You see that you know, you get a lot of those lighter parts in there, but we get the speckling all throughout it. So a lot of that rose speckles, the green speckles, and the brown throughout. So that is the skein. So let's talk about what we want to see next, right? So this skein is pretty light. You get the reds and the greens in there, as well as some of the speckling of the browns and the greens and that rose color actually. So you see a lot of that rose color in there. So what do we want to see in the next skein? So things to think about when you're doing a fade is you want to kind of, and it honestly, it depends on how you want to go about with the fade. Do you want it to be more blended, or do you want it to be more contrasted? So what we could do in the next skein is do the whole base of it this color and speckle the roses and the dark green and the browns over that, and make that kind of the whole base layer. We can do the same thing with the greens and bring out more browns. We can also go lighter, so we can do a more white skein that's just speckled with some of these on it. We can do like a light brown color with the speckles of the rose and the green. And something you want to think about as well is, what do we want to do in the third skein? So first of all, should this be the first color and then we add one on either side, or do you like this as a starting point? And so if we want to think about doing, let's say in the next color we want kind of that red that we used to be the base, and we want to speckle that with the rose and maybe some browns. Then in the third skein, would you want like that deep rose color to be the third skein with like speckles of brown? Or do you want to bring in the second skein, you know, you make it that red color as the base, and then maybe we're speckling a purple on top. You know, we'll want to bring in some colors from here, but we might want to introduce an entirely different color. So let me know below, one, what you think about this skein. Let me know what style of video you want to see. What are you excited about with fall? And then most importantly, where should we go next with this skein? So I did this video 2 weeks after the intro, and I think that worked really great, just to give people time to comment and then give myself time to both plan the skein, do a little bit of tests, and then dye it up and get the video, of course, recorded and edited. So I think that's going to work well. We're going to do these videos every other week, so it'll give you time. Don't forget that the set, if you want to buy it now, is 20% off in my shop until the next video posts. So anyway, thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you soon. Bye.